Hi, welcome to Fat Mascara, a podcast about beauty culture. It's still January. It's almost not January. I'm Jen Sullivan, your host, your co-host. Jessica Matlin will be here momentarily for an amazing interview. Before we get into that, we love you and we love when you give us reviews. So if you have a second, this helps us. This helps us get more listeners so we can keep putting out the podcast for free. So head over to Apple and give us a review if you don't mind, or on Spotify. You guys are loving this feature, and I'm loving the feedback and the comments we're doing. But on Spotify, on each episode, you can comment your feedback, or you can give us a rating there as well. We would very much appreciate it. On that note, I would like to read you, let's see our latest review on Apple. Here we go. From Sam P's Wifey, 37. Okay, Sam P's Wifey. Amazing show. 5 stars. Woohoo. Thanks for all the information and laughs you bring to us weekly. Oh, you're welcome, Sam P. Wifey. That's a good one. Thank you. That's going to send me into the weekend in like a happy place. Thank you so much. You know what else is going to send me into the weekend in a happy place? This interview. So a little background for this one I think would be helpful. We have David Kibbe here. Now, if his name doesn't sound familiar, the term Kibbe types might sound familiar to you. That is actually not what he calls them, but here's what's going on. David Kibbe was an image consultant. Like, he first got popular in the 1980s. And then through the 80s and 90s, he was featured regularly on all the TV shows, radio shows. It was like on Oprah, Sally, Jesse, Raphael, if these shows mean anything to you. I know how old you are. But then he came out with this book. In 1987, he published the book, David Kibbe's Metamorphosis, Discover Your Image Identity and Dazzle Only As You Can. And so in this book, he gives people the tools to learn about their image identity. He will not say this, but I will say this. There are body types in there. They are color stories and color families. It's a typing system to kind of help you figure out how to dress for the body that you have, how to project the style that you want, how to find colors of makeup that work for you. These kind of systems that we just kind of know and love and have been part of American culture for a long time. Well, the book was hugely popular, but then nobody really heard from him for a couple of years there. However, on social media, especially in the 2020s, a whole new generation discovered his work and started talking about the Kibbe types on social media. So now you might have seen or heard things like soft dramatic or the flamboyant gamine. These are some of the original Kibbe types. So he actually wasn't even on social media at this point, and it took off. But he recently, of course, he'll tell us the story, discovered that he has had somewhat of a resurgence. So he now has a new book out. He just published this in January. So it's brand new, which is also why we're having him on the show. David Kibbe's Power of Style, a guided journey to help you discover your authentic style. So we're going to talk about what's in this book, how it's different from his original body types, but just also the work he does and like where this whole typing system came from, why we're not allowed to call them body types. The book itself is such a journey. There's lots of exercises so you can figure out what your image identity, not your type, is. So if you're into that kind of thing, it's really fun. And I enjoyed the exercises. And I just enjoy the perspective he brings because he's been doing this for quite a while. He's seen trends come and go. And interestingly, the way that he thinks about style still feels relevant and fresh. Also, he's just a delight. I hope you enjoy him. So let's go into the studio. Jess is there. David is there. Let's get into it. David Kibbe.
Hi.
Oh my, I was just saying, I wish that we were in the same room together because I have so many questions, lots of style questions, lots of fit questions, lots of color questions. Today is a Fat Mascara episode where we go beyond just traditional beauty, and it's more the world of style. So thank you for joining us. We have a fashion style royalty here.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm blushing. Oh, my God. That's really nice.
I mean, but you know, when I say fashion style, like, it's not like, oh, you're a designer or like you're a fashion commentator. I can't really describe what you do. You call yourself a guru, a stylist, like an image coach? How do you describe your work?
Well, that is a really good question because I have worked for years to try to figure that out myself too, because it's not really something that people, well, certainly nothing, nobody ever did it. And I just created it along the way. So I was thinking about that a lot. I think maybe I'm a style mentor because what we really do, I work with my wife now, and we do a transformation process. And part of that has to do with, of course, a lot of it has to do with clothes. It all has to do with the appearance, but it's all about who the total person is. So you can't give someone style. Style is something that has to come from inside you. It's your voice. It's who you are, how you express yourself, how you tell the world your story, how you connect with the world. It's how you claim your purpose. It's the visual expression of who you are. And it's not just how you're dressing. It's how you move. It's how you talk. It's your choices in life. That's all your style. So you can't give that to somebody. You can help them develop it. So if I could be your best friend, your confidant, and your mentor, someone who has a different viewpoint from the traditional idea that style is an unreachable thing that is outside of you and you have to do all these other things to get there, and then it's never really you, even if you do those things. So it's a facade over you, which, if you stop and think about that, it makes you not feel very good about yourself. If you're saying, well, you're not okay unless you do this, 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 and this, and these aren't you. So we've got this idealized idea outside of you, and we're trying to make you into sort of as best as we can, close to that as we can. I just think that's like for the birds. That was like that just didn't make any sense to me. And also, style is just a reflection or expression of identity, who we are. So it's really, you've got to start with the core of the person. And I'm all about this idea that we're all individuals and that everybody comes to this planet with a purpose. And to me, beauty is individuality. So that is, every single person is unique. So my idea was, can't we get away from this idea of style or beauty being outside the self, but can it come from inside you? And can't we come up with a system that allows you to help understand what's really special about
Love a
you?
system. Love a system.
And how you work with that. But see,
Yeah.
it doesn't work if a system isn't there to help you as an individual. The problem with most systems is they're like algorithms. The thing about algorithms, I always say style by algorithm is an oxymoron, because an algorithm tells you what you already know, what you already get. Like if you buy a toothbrush online, you're going to get for the next 10 years toothbrush ads. But you already bought a toothbrush. You don't need those. But if you're trying to, if that search for a toothbrush was about oral health, you're not going to get anything from that. So if you go to the core, you always have to go back to the beginning of the person. So I really look to the core of the person. I don't look necessarily for what's presented. I look for what can be. And it's all about where you start. If you start with the idea of self-love, self-acceptance, and that everybody is who they're supposed to be, then you just create out of that. So that's why I would say I'd like to be a style mentor. I help people develop their style. This term stylist is a tricky thing because you cannot give a person style. You can help them discover their style. You can help them hone it. You can help them see things that they can't see. You do all of that.
So your approach is different than, like, we talk to stylists, and when working around stylists, they come in with the big rack, and this is no shade toward stylists, but they might be like, okay, I'm really oversimplifying. Of course, a great stylist is thinking about all those things that you're talking about, what the person brings forth and like what's right for them. But you're not a stylist, like you're coming in with your big rack and this is this designer and this is hot and this is what I see you. And you're really doing more inner work.
It's inner and outer. I think my approach is that it has to be an integration of the inner and the outer, because we start with the outer because that's fixed. To try to define someone's inner self, what they call an essence or persona or something like that, that's a very ephemeral thing, and it changes. I mean, we all grow constantly. We are all growing, so we need to have a place for that. But your outside is fixed. I mean, you have a certain type of coloring, you have a certain type of bone structure. Clothes hang on the body a certain way because of the way you're structured. I like to tell people they're a painting and a sculpture, and your coloring is like a painting and your shape is like a sculpture. So how do we take a palette, which should be a whole huge range of colors that works in harmony with what you have so that you can paint with that, and how do we learn to drape around the sculpture?
Well, let's get to color and painting in a little bit. Like, I want to just take it back to the beginning philosophy for a second.
Okay.
You're really thinking about style as like an express. I love the way you said that. You said like it's an expression of your inner self. It's the choices you make.
That's
It's
right.
not just like what's in your shopping bag, but it's maybe how you speak, how you carry yourself, what music you listen to, where you're going on Saturday.
Oh, that's so important. That's exactly right. Yeah, because you want to get to, it's about your dreams. You see, the thing about it is, unfortunately, we're all very limited by the things that we've been taught about ourselves. Sometimes it's mothers have the best intentions, but oftentimes what mothers put on their children, and society and then social media today, it's all about what you're supposed to do or this trend or that trend. And you learn all these things that you then integrate are wrong with you. So we have to get away from that. So there's no way to be objective about ourselves. That's a
No
false
way.
constraint. All right. So if you can forget that and think you're never going to see yourself objectively, so don't even try. So let's go to what's really authentic about you, because style has to be authentic or it's not style. It's just a look. All right. So let's go to what's really, really true about you. And what is true about you? The way you experience things, because we experience life in a sensory way. So you just think if you are walking down this by a bakery and you smell fresh bread. Okay, well, that's not one thing. Every single person probably loves it, but they experience it in a different way. But that is your experience. That's authentically yours. That's not subjected to somebody told you were supposed to do this or that or do it another way. So you learn to take the things that are authentically you, which is your experience. I'm going back to what you said about situation. And then those are the things that unfold. And if you understand that, then that starts to lead you to really your own authentic way of experiencing life, which brings you back to your purpose. And your dreams are authentic to you. Your dreams are not there because someone told you you're not supposed to do this. Your dreams are there because it touches on your passion. So that's unadulterated. So you hook into that. And then, you use the framework. Like if we're talking about clothes, we're talking about your body. You have a certain body. We can't make Katharine Hepburn into Marilyn Monroe. You cannot do that. That was very foolish. People try it all the time and it doesn't work. But Katharine Hepburn has all the same feelings as Marilyn Monroe, it's the integration of the two. So it's what you said about situation. We all experience our own situation in a very specific way, and we have an intention and we have our dreams. So if your dreams tell you what your soul really wants to do and what you came to this world to do, that's how you get to them. So you let that be like your carrot, and then you take that. Once you have some technique and you learn about your body, your color, whatever we're talking about, you take those dreams and then you let them lead you to unexpected places. Because the greatest thing today about clothes is there is everything available, because clothes are really different. Like from when I started, they're not the same at all. That's why you can't use the same approach. We can get into that later.
Yeah, let's get into your approach and how it's changed.
Let's talk about Kibbe types.
Well, so I read your new book and I was thinking, he's not saying types anymore.
I never
called
said types. I never used that
sorry.
word.
Yeah, so does that bother you that everybody calls them Kibbe types? That's how like we grew up with you,
Yes, and also, this is a social media phenomenon. I didn't, in the beginning, I wasn't really involved in social media at all in the beginning when it was happening because I was too busy. And what happened was an older client of mine came and said, I'm in this online group and there's several thousand people in it. And, we have a whole thing about you there and they would love to hear from you. So
Wait, were you like, what are you talking about?
completely. And so I went and looked, and it took me to this community board, which there was a whole library of me and my work on it. And then it took me to Facebook. I wasn't even on Facebook, and I'm still not on it personally. I have a public figure page, but I worked through my wife's page personally. Okay, there were 23 pages with my name on them that I had no idea were even there, and everybody had their own idea of it. And I understand why they get to that, but that's an old-fashioned way of doing things.
Did it feel derivative what they had come up with?
It felt like they were doing exactly the opposite of what I've been telling them all along, But
How
also,
so?
people hadn't even read the original book. They'd read excerpts from the book. So
Oh, yeah,
everybody
people
wants
don't
to.
read. It's fine.
Well, that's very true, and gets more stuff. Oh, you're so right. But people want to know what they are. So, and it's a great thing to know your type, because that sounds like an easy thing to do. but also you're used to doing it because that's what you read when they call you a fruit, which is like, how awful.
He's talking about the apple, the pear, the
Right.
ruler,
Pear.
these
Well,
body types that
no,
came up.
you're not a pear. That is not, there is
I'm
no
a
such
pear.
thing. No, you're not.
In the 1980s, though, that was how a lot of people learned about dressing. Where did the fruits come from?
Well, it has to do with the way that old silhouettes used to be, because silhouettes used to be constructed outside of the body. They were structured. So like in the 40s, it would come every 10 years or so usually from Paris. So there was a silhouette of the decade. Like in the book, I talk from togas to flappers, and you see each well, in the beginning, it's a lot more than a decade, but later on, it's like the 30s is one thing, the 40s, the 50s. Like in the 40s, you had those powered shoulders and a slim down silhouette. That's because of the war. So people wanted to have that strength feeling. And because of the war, rations. So there wasn't fabric available, so it had to be skinnier. So that's how you got that look. Well, in the late 40s, after the war, Christian Dior hooked into this need for the world to have this huge sigh of relief. Fabric became available, rationing was gone, and also people just wanted to party. So that's when he came up with what they called the new look, which was the reverse. It was a cinched in waist, very artificially cinched in waist, and yards of fabric, and sometimes the hips were even padded. That's how big it was. So we went from those are structured silhouettes.
Somebody patted my hips, I would die. Like, seriously? What freak?
But let me tell you something. I almost never met a woman that doesn't think her hips are too big. I can tell you stories about that from people that are like, toothpicks. But so anyway, after in the 80s, stretch started to be introduced slowly into fabric, lycra, elastin, things like that, which even if it isn't, it changed fabric completely. It invented all these fabrics that didn't even used to exist. And even when it's not there, the fabrics are lighter weight. So they drape around the body a different way.
Much differently,
So
yeah.
today, a silhouette is a combination of the body and the clothes. It used to be the silhouette was fixed, so you had to shoehorn yourself into it. So in a way, that's basically where those fruit things and balancing out and symmetry came from.
So this was culture trying to get used to the new fabrics. Like, how do
And
we
they
do
are,
this
and
now?
people don't know it yet. And this is why we're going back. They really are. People, like online, people have no idea about modern fashion. They think it's trends, and it's not. Trends are recycled. If you live long enough, like my mother always used to say, don't throw anything away because it's going to come back. And if we'd be wearing something and she'd go, oh, we used to wear that. It's really true. There isn't anything new. I mean, everything today was there in the 70s or the 60s. Really, truly, a little bit different version of it, but not much.
So when you went into this Facebook group, or when you saw how people had co-opted this concept that you came up with,
it was a nightmare.
Yeah, so I remember at one point someone was like, the 13 Kibbe types, and Jess and I were like, there's 13? What?
Well,
I've seen that.
There were. It was different because I was moving away from. Okay, then I wrote that book. I started doing what I'm doing in 1982. All right, and then I wrote that book. I started right away. It took about 4 years to write it, and it was published in 87, I believe. And right around that time was when things were changing. I remember the day that these two women that were publicizing, they worked for Charles Jourdan, which was a very famous shoe line, and they were introducing lycra in pantyhose to America at that point. And they came into my office and they presented it to me because they wanted to do a promotion. And it was a huge deal because it just changed everything. And so it was starting to change then. So I had written the book. When we're talking about that old silhouette, the structured silhouette, you really did have to deal with what was available. Even if you were like very curvy and it was all tailored clothes, we had to fit you into those. So the only thing you could do was sort of more, you would try to shape them as best you could. There were ways of doing that. And then it was more like sort of a personality, like there used to be a thing called clothing personality. But that's kind of where that was. And I was moving into something new because I was trying to introduce a new way of working to people that wasn't so rigid. But it was tricky. You only are able to do what's available in the stores. If they aren't creating them, you can only do what you can do.
People sometimes like a rule. It gives them guidelines.
Yeah, well, guidelines are different from rules. You see, all art, and I consider style to be your personal art, all art has requirements. If you want to play the piano, you've got to learn your finger exercises. You've got to learn your scales. You've got to learn hand position. You've got to do that. You can't just sit down and play Rachmaninoff. You have to do all that. But those are requirements, but they're not rules, okay? I'm against the rules because they put you in a box, and the putting you in a box is the reverse of style.
Yeah.
So is that what bothered you about how people had made
Yeah, because I created to free people from these things.
But you felt that people thought they were rules.
Yeah, but you know why? Because they wanted to go to the end of the story rather than go through the whole journey. See, style is a journey. You start out, you're a little child, and you're dressed by your parents. Then, let's talk about girls mainly. 6-year-old, they start to really get creative. And it's so much fun to watch them walk down the street because they'll have every possible color on. They'll have like striped tights and tutus and, it's just amazing. And because they're individuating. Then you get to your teenage years, which is all about rebellion. You don't want to dress like your parents, but you still want to dress like each other. So it's still peer group, but it's starting. Then you get to around mid-20s or something when your life really changes. And also the brain changes and you have a different need. So style keeps evolving through life and it has to be like that. So if you put yourself in a box, that's it. You're done, you're dead. And that's the end of your story. But that's not the way life is. I don't have any idea how old you are, but you're different from when you were 15. And think about, you're going to be different when you're 30 and you're going to be different when you're 40. And in my view, you get better and better and better because there's more of you. And that's good. That is a good thing. When you have experience, you have so much more to draw on that you can't even know in the beginning. So people are more rigid as they're younger because part of it is they want to be like everybody else in their peer group, but they want to be somewhat different and they certainly want to be different from their parents. But if you think about rules and you think about trends and style are the opposite because trends mean it's trending. Everybody's doing it. That's why we call it a trend. Style is about you as an individual person. And I created this system to be like the system for you as a person to develop your own style. So these names, they're not boxes to put you in. It's part of the technique to give you focus.
Can we talk about some of those names? Because,
Sure.
I think that will help people understand what the world of Kibbe is all about. What are some of those names? You've got a bunch, but what are some of your favorites?
Okay, you're talking about the image identities. All right?
Yes.
Okay? So let's talk about that term first of all, because that sort of gives you the whole thing. Image identity. That's a different thing from type or body type. Type means you're of something that already exists. Image identity means this is the image of your identity as a person. That's the whole gestalt of you.
What's your image identity, David?
Okay, well, I would be the male equivalent. I think we need new names for the men of what's called a theatrical romantic.
That is one of the types. That's one of the identities. Sorry. No type.
Yeah, think of them as like image identities. That's their name.
What is a theatrical romantic?
Okay, well, so you want to talk about me or you want to talk about women?
Yeah,
Which is more,
well, in general.
Okay, well, in a woman, a theatrical romantic is like a femme fatale. So she is moderate to small. Her bone structure tends to be more delicate. She's curve dominant, but she has a little sharpness. So Vivian Leigh was the most golden age archetype of that, if you want to call her that. Or someone like Anne Margaret is like that.
I love these references. It's a very particular time period, the references.
We'll talk about celebrities and the trap of that maybe a little later. Today, you're talking about Ariana Grande. Or,
Okay.
if you want somebody else from a little older, a woman of color is Dorothy Dandridge. Did you ever see Carmen, that movie Carmen?
No,
Watch
but
it.
we know who Dorothy Dandridge is.
She's phenomenal, gorgeous. And the clothes in that movie can be worn today. So that has a little bit of a retro style. It's feminine but sexy. I think the best way to talk about the image identity is to go with the extremes first. And how I get to them is a combination. It really is what we call your yin-yang balance.
Yes, you have a whole workbook in the book to help people figure out their yin-yang balance.
You get to the image identity by doing all these games that help you then experience yourself in a way so that you're not limited, because it's really hard to look at yourself and say, well, are my shoulders wide or are they narrow? Or that's not the way it works because you can't see it that way. But you get to a combination of yin-yang balance and personal line. That's how we get to it. But the extremes are the dramatic and the romantic. So the dramatic is a very angular type of a person. The romantic is very curvy. Okay, the two old extremes of that would be Katharine Hepburn versus Marilyn Monroe. All right, and when you think
everybody knows those references. Okay.
Exactly. That's why we use it.
I have a question.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'm like preempting this too much, but like I read the book. If you had a plus size for every version.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But if you are not a stick,
Mhm.
are you kind of more likely to be a romantic?
No, not at all. No, because your bone
Okay.
structure, like, okay, let's say you're someone like Katharine Hepburn, because she's very bony and angular. You know that's true.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
Tilda Swinton, if you want to think of somebody today.
Okay,
They're
okay.
straight.
Is she dramatic? What's her type?
Oh yeah,
Theatrical
God.
dramatic. I mean, I'm like
she
theatrical
she
dramatic.
just can be scary dramatic. I adore her, but she's a person. All right, so if she's very straight, so if she puts on weight, she's going to still be straight. It's going to be wider. But if you're voluptuous and hourglass and curvy, like Marilyn Monroe, okay, she could be stick thin. Like, let me see. Well, Sabrina Carpenter, not Sabrina
This is
Carpenter.
why the fruits are easier.
No, they're
But I
they're
love
really
that
not.
you're seeing the person for their whole person and all the thing that makes them in. Not a number on a scale, not a measurement of a weight.
Yes, you won the prize. Yes, because that's what we
It's
are.
a hard thing to do, though.
Do you have to
Of
kind
course
of
it
know the
is.
person? Like, you don't know? Like, if you saw Sabrina Carpenter walking down the street, not in her little like cutie getup, would you
Yeah,
be
she'd
like,
still be a little darling. She would be. There's no question about it. 'Cause
I think she's
small.
4'11". Yeah,
And she's got that darling face with the big eyes. That's like a Betty Boop or Leslie Caron was like that. That's Gigi. She's like that. She just is. You could dress her in any way you want to, but she'd still be that. She'd just
what
be
is
that.
her image identity? Sorry.
She's a soft Sabrina Carpenter. She's a
Yeah.
soft gamine.
Soft gamine.
Gamines are a combination of opposites. So they're little, but they're angular, or they might be.
David, I've tried to do. You're gonna. Yeah. Can you look at Jess? Like, can
no,
you
no, look at
figure
both
out?
of us. Don't put
Or
me on
both of us?
both of us because you can't see you can't see what Jen and I look like from the chin down. Really, can you tell what Jen
No,
and
but
I
I
are?
see your faces. I cannot. No. But that's why we have to have tea.
Oh, he's got to be in person because he's got to get the whole.
It does, because
stick.
online is, okay, this is the other thing. People try to do this from photos. You don't understand, photos don't look like a person. They're a flat representation, and they're always distorted.
Look at my notes after I did the book. So far, I have vertical, balanced, dramatic or flamboyant, gamine, vivid,
Okay, how tall are you?
winter.
Well, I can give you some clues. How tall are you?
Five, 4.5.
Yeah, I was going to say
Okay,
Jen's
so-
5'4". Yeah.
You could be any. If you're vertical would be dominant. Then you could be any of those. It's possible. It's hard to imagine.
I think she's dramatic. I think Jen's
You
dramatic.
think I am dramatic?
Why
Okay.
was in the face that would make sense to me. But
And she
there
has
are
a very
some-
straight line. She's very slim.
Quite an
and
athletic
strong.
build, yes.
That makes sense to me. I would say that's very exotic and gorgeous and sultry.
Okay. So do you walk through life, David, and are you constantly looking at people and their auras and trying to come up with their image identity?
No, I shut it off. That would be horrible. What I look at, but I do like to. Now, can you imagine? Talk about a busman's holiday. I have this Starbucks on my corner, and it's got a great window on Columbus Avenue, and I just sit and watch people go by. I like to see what people are trying to do. That's what I look for. I look for what their intention is because I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. This is why we call what I do love-based beauty. It comes from the heart and the soul. And it's about everything before, really, when we're talking about these types and all that, is based on negativity because it's all saying there's something that you're not. That is the most negative thing you can
So
say.
I'm curious, did you update your book or redo, because there's some things from the original, sort of to own back your name and tell people that's not what I've ever been about. This is what it's about.
That's true, but also working online, trying to help people, okay? Because after I found that out about online, fast forward a little bit, these three wonderful people they knew there were problems, and they got in touch with me, and they wanted to create a group that in Facebook that was based really on what the truth of it really is.
Okay.
So they created this group called Strictly Kibbe, and they invited me to come in. I'm a guest. I'm not even a member.
Strictly Kibbe. That sounds like a show.
I
know.
love it.
Well, it should be. Okay, so if you know any producers, we're ready to go.
Strictly Kibbe.
Because it really is so that people are not introducing other ideas so that they could really learn what it's about. And so I started seeing what people were doing and why they're doing it. And then, I've invited into all these other groups that are around and they ask for help and I see what they're doing. So I spent the better part, almost 15 years online looking to see what people are doing. Now, also knowing how things have changed and that you have to change today. You have to do it. You cannot do things the old way, and the old book is based on the older way. It's not, the philosophy was the same, but you're dealing with a different landscape. You can't do that. So I spent all that time trying to figure out ways to help people and what would give them a better way of doing this that could actually, online is all do it yourself. The idea that you can tell other people what they are is foolish because it takes real skill to do that because you really have
No,
to.
I understand that I don't think that that's an easy skill, but I do have to ask, there's a concept that has stayed the same that Jess and I actually are really curious, and that's the colors.
Yeah.
This idea of seasons. That was around in the 80s in your book now. Look, why have humans latched onto that way of thinking about color? And what's that all about?
Well, because color is a very ephemeral thing, and you need something to work with. But again, this has been distorted. No, I was a part of that. I started all those years ago with
Were
that.
you who started the seasons thing?
Isn't that Carol Jackson?
No, Max Factor in 1918. And then, okay, you want to hear the history of this? Okay,
Yes.
we wear makeup, or you wear makeup today because of Max Factor. He created cosmetics. He really did. And he was working in the movies when it was still silent film. And he had to start developing color products for women. And what he did was he was a chemist. And so he developed the formulas and he found that there were these 4 groups of skin tones, and that 2 of them are warm and 2 of them are cool in order for the cosmetics to look natural on them. So you got to remember, these are techniques for these beauty and style products. It isn't necessarily just the person. It's what you do to the person to make the person look more like themselves on camera. That's where it started. Okay, and so he developed the four palettes and how they were, the idea of the warm and the cool and that they're 4 groups. Okay, then in the 20s, there's a man named Johann Eaton who was from the Bauhaus School in Germany, who was this radical color theorist. And they eventually kicked him out of the Bauhaus School because he was weird. But he developed the concept of seasons because he also noticed that his painters, when their work was successful, were painting what he called the subjective palette. And it just became a poetic way of describing those 4 palettes. So it started with makeup because they had to make it look natural for color film as it was beginning to come in little by little. And then it progressed through that. And then they've been doing it for years. They were doing it on the West Coast, but Carol Jackson popularized it. But I started with Color Me Beautiful in the very, very beginning. I was one of the first original people that did that.
What year are we talking about? You were a consultant?
81 was
So
when
you
I started.
used her system when you were working with clients?
Yeah, I worked with her. Because that was the year it started, and she started training people in 81. I was like in the 2nd or 3rd group of people that she did. That's how it started. And then, it was so hugely popular, you cannot even imagine.
No, we were around then. We know.
Well, it gave you a way of working with color. It works on you, but you do have warmer skin tone. That's the truth. If you want your makeup to look natural, for instance, it's got to blend into the skin. People don't do it that way, and they get used to seeing like bright pink lips on redheads and things. And it looks awful if you really understand.
Jess is a redhead. Have you ever worn a bright pink lip, Jess?
Of course I have, because I wanted to be part of the trend.
No, but now you know better, so you don't. No, but there's shades of pink that you can wear, but I'm talking about exactly that, the trend kind of thing.
Yeah, it has such a hold now, though. It's so funny on a certain customer, a certain social audience.
It's like astrology. Right?
Yeah. Why do you think this is going on?
Okay, because if you ever had your chart done by somebody really good, and I'm not talking, okay, then that's a really amazing thing because they're really brilliant and they really know some things. And if you stop and think about that everything is energy, there is something to say, like the stars are all moving through the sky and their life is always happening up there. And if you start to think, well, everything's energy and you're born, at a certain energy and you have a certain energy, that can have something to it. But that's a lot different from reading today's horoscope in the paper. But that's the way people use color analysis. They use it as a box, and it's very rigid. It's not how it should be. You need to know your coloring. I say like you're a painting. You're not a blank slate. Nature made you as a masterpiece. You have beautiful skin, you have gorgeous hair, you have gorgeous eyes, and it is a unit. And if you could understand how it works, and then you can understand, well, let's use a complementary palette. That's all. But that palette should have thousands of shades in it. You can wear a version of almost every color there is if we get you in the right family. But you see, I feel instead of putting you in a box and saying, well, this little scarf looks better on you, that doesn't mean anything because nobody runs around in a little square of color. How do you paint with that? It's like a painter has a palette. They mix colors together and then they create out of that. But they use whatever palette they're using to do it. So that's what your season should be. It's a springboard.
So if I want to wear blue because my style is blue and I really feel blue, then I go to my season and find which blue.
Well, yeah, but I would say here's how we shop. By the time we get to the point where we're in the stores, we know these things about you. So we know your fat palette and we know your image identity. So we have a framework of things that will work and we have a framework of things that won't work. So then what we want to do is what I call shopportunity. All the diamonds in the rough that you don't know are there but are there.
Can I come to this shopping trip? Because I got to see this.
Yeah,
Jen.
do you go to the makeup counter with the client?
Well, I have my own line of makeup. So when we have our client, it's just for my clients. So I have a system of working with makeup that coordinates to their colors. And I believe that your eyes, cheeks, and lips have to be a unit because they're blended it's a painting on your face. They have to blend together. The problem with like coloring a lipstick by itself doesn't have anything to do with the blush or the eye makeup. It doesn't have anything to do with what you're wearing. It doesn't work.
You want it all, it's like going back to the painting.
Harmony.
Okay.
It's harmony. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you do, once you know those things, is you go to the size of the person on the rack. You can eliminate some colors right away because if you know, like, they're just
we all
awful
know
on
those
you,
colors.
You know that.
This was one of the exercises in the books, by the way. That was an easy exercise.
Oh, okay, great.
Your ick. I think you called it your ick.
Your yuck, yeah.
Your yuck color.
Yuck,
Jen, what's your yuck color?
Oh, beige. A mauvey beige.
Okay. And so what I do, I have this other thing that's not in the book. What do I call it?
Wait, I don't know. Jess says it. David, what's your yuck color?
I don't have any yuck colors.
Oh, of course.
I really do.
Jess, what about you?
My yuck color is something that, like, I'm going to segue to the next question. David, you come back to the shopping trip. Maybe this will fold in. The colors that should be yuck colors to me, because they don't look good on me, are like the colors that I feel like spiritually connected to.
Oh, well, give me an example.
Yeah.
Okay. So like,
Let's be specific.
one of like my favorite color combinations is kind of like aqua and sort of like a cool pink. Like I love these like cool pastels.
That's like Caribbean colors.
I love Caribbean colors. I have this very orange cast to me.
She's an autumn for sure.
Well,
I'm
let
an
me tell you
autumn.
something. Yeah, you are. That's true. But whoever told you that you can't wear aqua is totally wrong. That's part of the palette. See, there's thousands of colors in the palette. Everybody can wear.
But it's a broader question, David.
Like, what do you do if you like colors that you think you're not supposed to wear?
Yes, and even like the identities. Like, let's say, like I did my identities, and like spoiler alert, I think I'm like a romantic. Well, I'm definitely romantic, but I'm something romantic. Soft romantic.
Okay, well, let's say that's true, and I don't know that that is true. Okay, your definition is wrong because let's say you are a theatrical romantic. That's not a box. That you can do anything. Like you can wear a tailored suit. We just got to work with your body. You can wear a jumpsuit. You can wear.
Yeah, because theatrical romantic feels like she's supposed to be in a flowy, drapey dress.
Yeah, I feel like she's to be in like a.
Okay, so Susan, my wife, is a theatrical romantic, and it runs around in like a sweater and tights, but it's fitted and it looks great. And she'll have like a swing coat or something like that if it's cold. She looks fabulous. She doesn't go around in evening gowns. She has some, and she looks great in them. And maybe
at the grocery store, like an evening gown. Excuse me, what's romantic?
Okay, you want to know one thing?
Because the word romantic makes you think that,
Yeah, I'm just like, what if I want to wear sneakers and like kind of baggy jeans and like a baggy shirt?
Well, you can do anything you want. First of all, there's no police around. I don't go around arresting people. Okay? And if you want to do that, that's fine. But when you're doing that, you're hiding.
Which maybe she wants to play with a masculine identity one day. Not just baggy.
So
but
then
like
if that were true, and I'm not saying you are a theatrical romantic, just say we're pretending. Okay, so then you do like Marlene Dietrich used to do. She wore those tuxedos, but they were fitted to her body, and they're very sexy.
Yeah.
High-waisted
Yeah,
pant with like a loose
and she'd
pant.
wear a top hat and she'd wear a tie, but it would be fitted and curvy. So there's a way to do anything you want. It's not about that. It's about understanding what you are. That's really what we're talking about. Your image identity is. It's the end of the road. It's to give you focus. Because if you are a theatrical romantic, okay, you could dress in that outfit that I just said. But if you were Katharine Hepburn, you wouldn't wear that same version of that. She'd wear a different version of that.
I get you.
And same thing with the colors. Everybody can wear light, bright, and dark. You see, one of the things I hate about the way they do some of the colors is they're so limited. Like they'll talk about autumn.
You mean online when people like make it very derivative and they're like, here's your colors, bye, see you later.
It's the way people are trained to do it today, too. It's too much of a box. Like like if you look at the autumn palette that people show you online, it looks like
Yeah.
mud.
I know. That's why I hate autumn.
Okay, but let me tell you something. That's not what autumn looks like. Have you ever been to New England in the fall and seen the trees? It's ablaze.
It's vibrant. It's
The
much
autumn
more
palette,
vibrant.
The autumn
Yeah.
palette has the fiery hot colors of fall. It has the rainforest colors, those brilliant rainforest colors, and it also has a hazy sort of desert colors. It's a gorgeous palette. This is like a cliche. Style is not a cliche. Color should not be a cliche.
This looks like mud. It does. It's like hunter green, pumpkin.
Do you find it's hard? It's hard for people to do this online too because we're looking at these little phone screens.
Oh,
It
of
doesn't
course.
give the.
Yeah, it's very hard to do that. I mean, some people are very obvious. You know that, like, you would know you're in autumn and you would know you're a winter. There's
Yeah,
no way
we're pretty easy.
And that's like, but a lot of people are not. And also, the colors they use
The springs
are
and
really
the summers, those are the hard ones.
It's the same girl. It's the same girl.
Spring. No, one's cool, one's warm. Spring's warm and
spring
summer's
is warm
cool.
and summer's cool.
Yeah. No, I got very into this.
Okay, but there's another, like the summer palette they put online sometimes too is just so dull. But that's not summer. Like, if you look at the book, did you see the hearts of the palette in the book?
Yes. You used fabric squares rather than just
That's
flat
to shop
colors.
with. That's right. But I'm talking about the color
That
explosions.
was helpful.
Because the color explosions.
Oh, you mean the psychedelic little two-page things?
Yeah, right.
I wasn't sure what those were, David, to be honest.
That's the heart of the palette. It tells it right before. This is where, they take time. The book explains it. If you take the heart of the palette and you exploded the colors through the heavens, that gives you a sense of the range of colors that each palette represents. See, here's the thing about
Are you pulling up the pictures, Jess?
No. I'm looking at the questions, but
Here's the thing about color, all right? Color is not this fixed thing. Color is light that reflects the back of our eye through the retina and passes through all these little cones that we have in our eyes. And there are millions of cones in each eye, and they're all shaped differently. And no two people have the same. And your two eyes are not the same. So no two people see color alike. I always say that you should not say what I see, you should say what you perceive. And so that's the idea of categorizing it is crazy. You want to give people freedom, not a box. So I could show you colors in the autumn palette that you will fall in love with. And they'll be like aqua is great. I have an aqua suit in linen that I wear when we go to the islands that I love. You would love it.
Are you fall? Are you in autumn?
I'm in autumn, yeah.
Okay.
Well, but to what end are we doing this, by the way? If someone's listening to this and like, why would I do this? As to look better in clothes, to look better in makeup?
Yeah, like who needs this in their life? Like what's the sell?
Depends on what you want to do with your life. If you want to fulfill your potential, you came here as an individual, you came here with a purpose, and part of who you are is who you look like.
Wow. Way to say it like right to the point. It is part of, yeah.
Because some people do say it's irrelevant.
No, they're wrong. That's because people, there's marketing under all of this. You got to understand, there's always been companies that produce things that want people to buy things. And today, conglomerates own all the fashion houses. So, it used to be that designers, there are some wonderful designers out there, and there are a lot of junk. It's both. But designers used to be like sort of autocrats, like Schiaparelli or Dior or Madame Grey. They had, even Yves Saint Laurent, they had a singular vision, and they put their vision out there. Today, it's not that they're not brilliant, but they are often subservient to the conglomerates that own them. So the marketing of the collection almost is more important than the concept of the design. Every now and then you'll get
Is that a disservice to the art of fashion?
Of course it is. But what are they going to do? First of all, if you're Michael Kors, you'd rather be a billionaire than, have your house go under. So that's the way it is. I'm not trying to fight that system. I'm trying to give people tools to work within it.
You're not a rebel?
I am a rebel, but I'm not. But I'm trying to give people, and I certainly rebel against conformity and homogenization, because that's the opposite of style. I'm trying to give people tools to work with the landscape that's there, and that's why this new book is different from the old book, because the landscape is different.
Very cool.
I think part of this is so interesting is like you're a therapist.
Really, you are like a fashion therapist. You're a style therapist. Who are you?
I'd rather be your style confidant. Okay,
confidant. Therapist sounds a little like
because I'm on your side. When I want.
And I've seen interviews about you. You are always talking about others. You're helping others. We ask a lot of our guests, what kind of fashion and grooming products are you drawn to? Like,
Okay,
what do you put
okay.
in your hair? What's in your hair right now, David? You've got gorgeous hair.
Oh, thank you.
A little pomade
Oh,
in there. I don't know. I want to know about what you use every day.
well, I use Pericone products, basically.
Oh, on your skin.
Yeah.
Good
I
stuff.
use this thing called neuropeptide, which is phenomenal. I use an under eye firming thing. That's mostly it. And then I use a Pericone shaving cream that I mix with a little lidocaine. Because there used to be this thing, yeah, just a little bit, okay?
Okay, go on.
You threw me with the lidocaine.
I know. Well, that's interesting. Okay, because here's why. Okay, Aramis, which was men's
Yeah.
division of Estee Lauder, used to have this, came out with this shaving cream in this tub, and it cost a fortune, but you only use a tiny little bit, and it had a little benzocaine in it. I have very sensitive skin, so I always had razor burn, always, until this stuff came out, and it was amazing. And then they discontinued it. So then I searched around, well, what can you use? And there was another thing for a while that had a little lidocaine in it. They discontinued that. I think because people didn't want to spend that much money, but you know, the truth of it is it was really economical because you didn't use hardly any. And it's just a tiny little bit, but it doesn't really numb the skin, but it makes it smoother. It works better. So I figured out, well, let me see if I could make something myself. And so I
Oh my
ordered,
God.
I don't know, like I'm
He's
like
a chemist
a witch,
too.
right? No, it's like a witch at the cauldron. I ordered a little cream, cream, which you can get over the counter. It's a simple thing. It's not like this prescription thing. And I mix it with this Pericone shaving cream, and it works really well. So that's
And you don't get any irritation.
the opposite. That's
Look
why I
at that.
don't. Yeah, yeah.
Any fragrance? Do you have a favorite fragrance?
I haven't worn fragrance in years. It's so funny because my wife and I were talking about that. We used to be very into it, and neither one of us has for a long time. I used to wear Antaeus by Chanel, and that was my go-to fragrance for a long time. Now, growing up, I had like 15 different colognes, and I would wear a different one every day, and I thought that was just the coolest thing. And, and I was young. I had English leather lime, Canoe.
Canoe.
I
Do you remember the ad?
Canoe.
Canoe? Yes. Yves Saint Laurent Après Ski, it was called. I don't even remember all of them.
You had a wardrobe. You had a whole
I
fragrance
did.
wardrobe.
The whole counter of my dresser was that. One of the things I think that's really important for people to understand is as you get older and you get more refined, in any kind of art, it gets simpler because it's not more elaborate. You know, when you're very young, especially if
Why
you're
do you think that is?
I think because you have wisdom.
David, how old are you?
You really want to know? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to tell you a story about that. 69. 69.
You sure about that? You said it like
Okay, but let me tell you why. All right?
Okay.
First of all, I erased the idea of numbers a long time ago. I came to New York as an actor. All right, and I realized, because people ask me that, and I think, I don't really attach things to those numbers. And where did I stop? I've been lying about my age my whole life. First of all, my mother lied about her age in reverse. My mother was a very ornery type, so she would lie that she was older than she was. So that was sort of in the background that you don't tell the truth about things
Yeah.
like that. And I used to like forge, driver's license to get into bars and things when I was a teenager. And I'm from a small town, in the middle of Missouri. And I seemed older than a lot of people there because I'd been exposed to a lot of things. So I grew up with people thinking I was older. So then I came to New York when I was like 20. And all of a sudden, your age in show business is only how people perceive you. And you can't audition for things that they don't perceive you as. And I looked very young. So all I could audition for, all I ever got were teenagers. So then I started lying that I was younger than I was. And then as it got older, I still was doing that because even by the time I was 30, I couldn't get
You
cast.
could play 20 in a...
I couldn't
Yeah.
get cast as a 30-year-old. But if they knew you're 30, they're never going to submit you for that because it's all prejudice.
You're working with the systems that exist. I get
That's
it.
right. And so then when I started doing this, I was in my mid-20s, actually, when I started doing this little by little. And then I looked very young, so I wanted to be more authoritative. So I would say I was older than I was. Okay, then I went in the back, and then so I got used to that. So I kept changing my birth year in my mind in case people would ask. then I go back into acting again, and it's the same thing. I'm still 10 years younger than I was then. So when I'm 40, I'm saying I'm 30. So I realized it's crazy. This idea, this attachment that we have to the number.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked you. I'm asking the wrong question.
Okay,
I get
no,
it.
it's really not. I mean, you might as well know. I'm in July. I'm a July baby. So I turned 69. I was born in 1955. So I really came of age in the 70s. That's sort of like,
So when
when
you're
I
at a point in your life, though, you have wisdom. You've streamlined. You know who you
I
are.
wouldn't say that about myself. I would say I have ideas, strong ideas. But yes, because I remember I was in therapy for a long time. I remember early on, my therapist said to me when I was in my 20s, he said, "Your life is just beginning." He said, "I would not go back to my 20s for all the money in the world." And I thought, what on earth are you talking about? This is like nobody older than us knows anything. And then you start to get older and you realize, oh, you said these stupid things when you were younger. And it's like, I hope nobody remembers them, because you know what I mean? I think back and I think, oh, I hope that didn't get recorded anywhere. So,
Yeah.
it's cliche to say you're as old as you feel, but I don't really. If you stay around long enough, you just sort of understand that these things are different. And also, let me tell you something. Ageism is a terrible thing in our society. It's the worst thing. It's still the ism that's the worst of all, because you don't have to age the way your parents did. You don't have to age the way your grandparents did. Our bodies are meant to be better, live longer and better than we take care of them. And if people take care of themselves, not that I do such a good job, but I'm not like, smoking all the time or something like that, or all the things that do show up. They just do. And I learned to stay out of the sun, which was hard. I was a lifeguard as a teenager and I taught swimming lessons, Red Cross. I was a Red Cross certified swimming instructor. So I was in the sun every day. And that was when people
You've
wanted
had many lives.
I have.
He's like a concert level pianist too, and then he's an actor.
Well, thank you, but that's where I started. It's my piano that gave me everything, because I was very talented and I had a fantastic teacher and she taught me technique.
That's part of the book too. He goes through that. It'll help you understand.
I thought that was important to say those things about myself, because if I'm asking people to trust me, they need to know something about me. And also, it's where my philosophy comes from, and everything about this system is based on the philosophy.
Yeah. Okay, before we let you go, we do this
I don't want
thing.
to go.
I know, we didn't prepare you, but this is a fun thing. We do a little exercise. We call it the Fat Mascara 5. Jess, you want to do it?
Yeah, this is a quick and dirty lightning round, okay?
Okay.
Very, 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 first thing that comes to your mind. What's the
Can you flunk this?
There's no flunking. It's not even possible.
All right, that's what I say. Okay, go ahead.
What is the last thing you bought, David?
Clothes-wise?
No, could be a stick. It could be a pack of gum. Could be a coffee.
Okay, iced tea.
Okay, iced tea. What, like on the corner in a restaurant?
At Starbucks, I have like about 5 iced teas a day. I do. I was raised on them. What can I tell you? No sweetener, no water, just tea and ice.
Wait, do you get 5 Starbucks iced teas a day?
Yes, Trenton's, the largest size.
Oh my God.
No, I get 4 black and 1 green.
Do they know you?
Oh boy, do they ever.
Do they know your name?
Oh God, yes.
Do they have
them ready for me? Yes. Yes, on a tray. Of course.
Oh my God, that is hysterical. That's the funniest thing. I'm not going to forget that. That is so funny. What movie would you consider to be the most stylish movie of all time?
Oh, Gosford Park.
Oh, that's a goodie.
And second one would be Age of Innocence.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
What's your favorite piece of clothing that you own?
Burgundy velvet jacket I wear as a suit with burgundy pants, but it's 2 pieces and it's got big peak lapels and it's velvet. Oh, and my second one is, I have a second one. Can I give you a second one?
Yeah.
I have a champagne colored sharkskin suit.
Oh,
wow.
In the fall, in the autumn palette, both of those. Lovely.
Yeah. What's your favorite snack?
Oh God, today it's brie.
Okay.
Because
Nice.
we have a lot of it and I've been eating it, so.
And finally, it's 11 a.m. on a Saturday. What are you most likely doing?
Sleeping, hopefully.
Have you woken up yet and gone back to sleep, or you're just not even awake yet?
No, because I don't go to bed until around 3 or 4 in the morning.
Because you have 5 iced teas a day, David.
What are you doing at 3 or 4 in the morning, dare I ask?
Metabolizing his iced teas.
Exactly. I'm watching a movie, watching television. I don't know. If it were pre-COVID, maybe we'd be going out. We'd just be getting in.
Yeah.
Oh my
love
God. That's really funny.
This was fun. I love hearing from you directly, because I think a lot of people talk about you online and social media. So it's really nice to hear from you about what you've created. So thank you.
Wait, one last quick question. It's like a yes or it's like a yes or no. Are you ever somewhere where you swipe your credit card, fill out an application, and someone's like, "Are you Kibbe, like the Kibbe?"
Yes.
Really?
Okay. So just like a couple of weeks ago, Susan and I were walking down the street at night, and this woman came up to her and everybody's always stopping because Susan looks so great. And I gave her my card and she looked at it and she started screaming. She goes, when I get home, my daughter is going to go crazy. She talks about you night and day. Yes, happens a lot.
That is incredible.
Well, she can come listen to this podcast because it's been fun getting to know you.
Can I say one thing before you go? Because I was
course.
listening to your last one when you're talking about the caviar and the baked potato at the Caviar Cafe.
Julie talked about Caviar Cafe.
Oh my God!
Do you like that baked potato?
Oh, I love that place. I love that baked potato. We went there after it opened with friends, and we had that baked potato. And oh my God, I have dreams about that potato.
Okay. Well, we'll end on that note. We hope you get another one soon. David, thank you so much for joining us.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
It's your reviews and feedback that help us make the podcast even better. Head over to iTunes to rate and review us or email your thoughts to info@fatmascara.com.
We also want to answer your beauty questions and hear what products you love. To share a Raise the Wand product review or to ask a beauty question, email us at info@fatmascara.
If you send it as a voice memo file, we can even share your voice on the podcast. You can also do that by leaving us a voice message. Our phone number in the United States is 646-481-8182.
Thanks so much for listening.